The first warning didn't arrive as a roar of jet engines over the Aegean. It came as a budget line, then a doctrine, then a network. Greece, long caricatured as the smaller power treading water next to a larger and louder neighbour, has quietly wired itself for a different fight. Not a duel of mass, but a contest of brains, bandwidth and precision. Tonight, we're diving into the story of how Greece is doing exactly what Turkey feared, shifting the regional balance with an unprecedented modernization blitz that fuses high-end tech, hardened alliances, and a doctrine that says the best shield is a sharper spear. If the 2010s were about surviving crisis, the mid-2020s are about engineering advantage. Athens isn't trying to match Ankara plane for plane or ship for ship. That'd be like bringing a calculator to an abacus fight and then arguing about beads. Instead, Greece is re-architecting its entire way of war, turning the Aegean and Eastern Mediterranean into a sensor-rich, missile-laced battlespace where quality, integration, and timing trump raw numbers. The headline is simple and staggering: a 25 to 28 billion euro 12-year defense modernization plan, the largest in the country's modern history. The ambition is broader than buying shiny hardware. It's about replacing legacy equipment across air, sea, and land, integrating advanced drones, cyber operations, and space assets, and, crucially, rebuilding the domestic defense industry to keep the edge sustainable.
To understand why this matters, roll the tape back. Greece and Turkey have tracked each other like wary fencers for decades. Airspace disputes measured in seconds and meters, maritime claims overlaying a tight archipelago, and the constant hum of deterrence. Turkey's advantages, population, industrial scale, sheer troop numbers, aren't going anywhere. But Athens never planned to outbulk Ankara. It planned to outthink it. After a decade of austerity, Greece started turning the key on a different machine, a force that is smaller, smarter, and positioned to punish any quick dash across the water or the sky. When geography compresses time, readiness and networking beat size. That's the gamble, and the modernization plan is the bankroll. The plan's scope is almost industrial policy in uniform. Money flows not only to procure jets, frigates, submarines, missiles, and helicopters, but to knit them together and keep them supplied by factories with Greek addresses. A revitalized Hellenic aerospace industry to upgrade fighters and produce components. Shipyards tasked with refitting frigates and building patrol and support ships. Universities and startups pulled into projects on AI-enabled command systems, cyber defense, and satellite communications. The idea isn't just to buy capability, but to mint it, so that the upgrades of the 2000s and 30s don't depend on a phone call and a queue. At the doctrinal heart is a project with a storybook name and a thoroughly modern mission: Achilles Shield. Budgeted at roughly 2.8 billion euros, Achilles is a multi-layered, integrated air and missile defense network meant to protect cities, bases, fleets, and maneuver forces from the full spectrum: anti-drone, anti-aircraft, anti-ship, anti-submarine coordination, and even anti-ballistic missile coverage. Think of a web instead of a wall. Sensors on land, sea, and in the air feed an AI-enhanced battle management system. Satellite-enabled communications keep the picture flowing when jamming starts, and shooters, from surface-to-air missiles to naval interceptors and electronic warfare suites, are assigned targets by software that doesn't panic. The old model was defend the base so the fighters can launch. The new model is defend the force so it can attack. An elegant shift that frees Greece's frontline units to think offensively without leaving the homeland naked. Achilles Shield forces a doctrinal pivot that is easy to miss if you're counting launchers instead of networks. In the past, Greece's air defense lived in islands: a Patriot battery here, a naval SAM there, an interceptor squadron somewhere else. The weak point wasn't the missile, it was the seam. Achilles is designed to erase the seam, fusing tracks, prioritizing threats, directing fire, and even queuing non-kinetic options like jammers and decoys. It also changes the cost curve. When a cheap, fast drone can be handled by an electronic attack node or a small interceptor directed by AI, You don't waste €1,000,000 missiles on €5,000 problems. Save the big sticks for the big threats. For a country that must protect so many islands, ports, and air bases, this is not a luxury. It's survival by software.
Of course, a shield is only as credible as the spears behind it. Greece has locked in its entry to the 5th generation club with the acquisition of 20 F-35A fighters, while sustaining a potent 4.5 generation mix anchored by Rafales and a major F-16 upgrade to the Viper standard. Picture the air stack this way: stealth jets acting as the quarterbacks, fusing sensor data and slipping through defenses. Rafales delivering long-range precision and air superiority. Viper upgraded F-16s providing numbers with cutting-edge avionics. And specialized older platforms filling niche roles while they sunset. The point isn't to own every inch of sky all the time. It's to make any adversary's planning nightmare come to life. Uncertainty about who sees whom first, which radar is real, and whether the missile that just lit off is coming from a fighter you can't track or a ship you didn't know was there. On the maritime side, the Hellenic Navy is undergoing its most meaningful refresh in a generation. French-built FDI HN frigates, streamlined for area air defense and sensor fusion, are the tip. They bring active electronically scanned array radars, advanced electronic warfare suites, and the punch to defend a task group against massed missile or drone attacks. They're meant to work as nodes, gather data, share it, shoot when necessary, and queue others when better placed. Parallel to that, Greece is modernizing its MEKO-class frigates, new combat systems, better sensors, and updated missile fits that keep these veteran hulls lethal. Fast attack craft receive new anti-ship missiles with extended range, pushing sea denial further offshore. It's not a blue water vanity project. It's a literal dominance plan designed for islands, straits, and narrow seas, where misjudgment gets punished quickly. Below the waves, Greece's air-independent propulsion submarines remain one of the region's most stealthy and strategically consequential assets. Quiet, patient, and perfectly suited to a maritime environment full of choke points, they deny freedom of action to amphibious groups and surface combatants alike. When you pair them with modern heavyweight torpedoes and improved command and control that ties into the broader maritime picture, they become more than solitary hunters. They become the anvil to the Navy's hammer. Add in the arrival of modern anti-submarine warfare helicopters, and the underwater chessboard gets crowded in all the right places for Athens. If you are the kind of adversary who likes to test islands with quick amphibious feints, this is the part where your staff officers start checking their maps for no-go overlays. The project that keeps drone operators awake at night is homegrown: Centaur, a Greek-designed counter-UAS system. Instead of relying solely on kinetic shots, Centaur blends detection, classification, electronic warfare, and soft kill options to break drone raids at scale. It's the nasty surprise in a world where UAVs have become the cheapest way to tip a battlefield. With Centaur nodes ashore and afloat, Greece can greet hostile drones with a cocktail of jamming, spoofing, and micro-interceptors, saving expensive missiles for the threats that truly demand them. Pro tip to any Bayraktar dreaming of a scenic Aegean route: pack a parachute. The Wi-Fi just got very unfriendly. On land, Greece is quietly constructing an offense-defensive obstacle course that punishes speed. Spike NLOS missiles give ground units and naval platforms the ability to strike beyond the horizon against ships, vehicles, and hardened positions. Consider how this plays on a map filled with islands. A corvette or landing craft feels safe in a dead zone, then gets lanced from a hidden launcher ashore. Long-range rocket artillery, acquired or planned, extends the reach to air bases and logistics hubs well behind the front line. Coastal anti-ship batteries are being integrated into the same kill web that guides fighters and frigates, turning narrow waters into trapdoors. The effect is cumulative. If you move fast and bold, you move through overlapping pockets of risk. If you move slow and careful, you cede initiative and momentum. Either way, the offense-defensive doctrine makes sure the bill comes due. The modernization wave is not just about weapons and sensors. It's about how Greeks train and fight. Pilots learn to fly under a networked umbrella, using data from someone else's radar to cue their own weapons. Surface commanders practice dispersed operations,
where a frigate directs fire for a missile boat that never turned its own radar on. Submarine crews plug into a common picture, where their sonar tracks inform air-delivered torpedo drops miles away. And across the force, electronic warfare and cyber units are baked into the exercise scripts, not invited at the last minute. This matters because technology without tactics is just a brochure. Greece is buying time, not only in the sense of early warning, but in the sense of compressed decision loops that let a small force think and act like a bigger one. Now, the question everyone asks, how does this stack up against Turkey, the region's heavyweight? On headcount, Ankara will always outnumber Athens. Turkey's defense industry has matured dramatically, producing drones at scale, modernizing aircraft, rolling out new corvettes, and flirting with fifth-generation fighter prototypes. It secured new fighter kits and is retooling its fleet toward carriers for drones and, long-term, next-gen jets. That's serious power. But Greek strategy isn't a mirror. Athens is not auditioning to fight a war of attrition. It's designing to win the first 72 hours of a crisis by inflicting operational paralysis. It is not trying to match sortie for sortie. It is trying to make the decisive sorties land first and matter most. It is not trying to sweep the sea. It is trying to carve corridors where Greek ships can survive and adversaries cannot. Think in practical terms. In a hot scramble over a disputed islet, stealth jets feed targeting data to Rafales that never switch on their radars. Vipers come in low with modern avionics and precision munitions. And an island battery of long-range missiles, hidden under camouflage and decoys, waits for a landing craft that thought the coastline was clear. In a naval shadowing incident, a frigate under Achilles Shield sees a drone swarm early, tasks a Centaur-equipped picket to jam and spoof, and keeps its Aster-class interceptors for the handful of missiles that make it through. In the background, an AIP submarine floats in a patch of deep water, listening and ready. These are not fantasies. They are the scenarios the modernization is designed to make routine. Geography magnifies all of this. Greece's bases are not just points on a map, they are levers. Alexandroupoli has become a logistics hinge for NATO, a throughput hub that moves heavy kit fast into southeastern Europe without relying on choke points elsewhere. Suda Bay is the anchor in Crete, a natural gas station and launch pad for naval and air operations that reach the Eastern Med, North Africa, and the Levant. When Allied aircraft rotate through, they don't just add flags, they add interoperability. Shared data links, shared procedures, and the muscle memory of joint operations make Achilles Shield larger than the nation that built it. It becomes a regional net. Allies matter in quieter ways too. Greece has leaned into joint exercises with European and regional partners, building habits that are hard to improvise in a crisis. It has aligned its procurement to ensure that spare parts, ammunition, and software support don't trickle in through bottlenecks. It has made itself useful to its friends, escorting shipping in contested waters, hosting training detachments, and offering access to infrastructure. The diplomacy is practical. Your best deterrent is not a speech. It's a dozen allied aircraft that know your airspace better than your adversary does. Money, of course, is the ultimate constraint. Greece's bet is that defense spending, kept around the top tier in NATO and packaged with industrial partnerships, can sustain momentum without crushing the economy. It leverages European policy shifts that encourage joint munitions buys and co-production, turning Brussels' slowly grinding gears into real parts on real shelves. In other words, the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Defense finally agree on something. If you're going to spend on things that make the next euro cheaper. That is why the modernization plan is so adamant about local industry. Sourcing everything abroad is faster at first, but brittle over time. Sourcing what you can at home buys resilience, a useful trait when a crisis cuts shipping lanes or an export license gets political. If the old Greek defense posture was "come at me, bro, I have fortifications," the new posture is "come at me, bro, I have software." It's a subtle distinction, but one of them gets updates over the air. And for once, those updates don't require you to click "Remind me tomorrow" 5 times. Instead, the whole force benefits as algorithms are tuned, threat libraries expand, and hard lessons from real-world deployments, like escort missions in dangerous waters, make their way back into the code.
The maritime domain deserves another pass, because that's where numbers often mislead. People look at fleet size and declare a winner, but the relevant metrics in narrow seas are detection range, reaction time, and salvo density. Detection range is a function of sensors and emissions control. Reaction time belongs to who automates the kill chain better. Salvo density, how many missiles you can put into the air before the enemy can stop you, depends on both magazine depth and the brains that decide what to shoot and when. Greece's modernization is tuned to those three dials. AESA radars and passive sensors extend detection. AI-directed defense compresses reaction. Dispersed shooters, ships, coastal batteries, aircraft build salvo density without tying it to a single hull. If the other side opens the fight with a big, loud first punch, the Greek answer is not to block it with a bigger hand. It's to parry in multiple places and counterpunch where it matters. Drones complicate every picture, so Athens treats them not as a gadget but as a layer. Recon drones help paint the maritime and land picture. Loitering munitions threaten high-value assets that think they're safe, and counter-drone suites are being spread across ships and bases. The guiding logic is simple: swarms are coming, and a state that waits to learn on the fly will learn the hard way. Integrating counter-swarm tactics into exercises early, testing electromagnetic deception, and marrying them to Achilles Shield's sensor backbone makes a drone raid just another problem to solve, not a magical trump card. In the 2020s, the force that treats drones like artillery, with doctrine, logistics, and counter-battery equivalents, wins boringly. And boring victory is still victory. Cyber and space quietly underpin the whole construct. A national push towards secure satellite communications means the kill web stays connected even when terrestrial links are jammed or cut. Hardened data centers, redundant nodes, and trained cyber teams reduce the chance that the first shot lands in a server instead of a runway. Offensive cyber capabilities, used judiciously, can slow an adversary's tempo, corrupt targeting data, or impose friction at key moments. None of that is glamorous enough for a parade, but in the first hour of a crisis, it's the difference between orchestrated defense and polite chaos. What about energy and economics in the Eastern Mediterranean? Greece's modernization is not only about fighter cockpits and sonar screens, it is also about protecting sea lanes, energy infrastructure, and the fragile arithmetic of offshore exploration. In contested EEZs, presence is policy. A frigate on station, a maritime patrol aircraft overhead, and a coalition of partners who see the water the same way. You can call that saber rattling, or you can call it insurance. The point is to keep coercion cheap for no one. When a survey ship moves with an escort, the message isn't "we want to fight." It's "we won't be priced out of our rights." Let's talk training again, because the best tech in the world dies on the vine without it. Greece is leaning into distributed operations and mission command, giving lower echelons real authority inside a network that shares the same map. If a patrol boat's radar picks up a fast contact, it doesn't need to phone a general. The system knows which shooter is best placed and which weapon makes sense. If a squad on an island sees an unusual drone pattern, their report doesn't sink into a logbook. It colors the shared picture and raises the alert in places they'll never see. This is how a small force multiplies itself. It gives up centralization and gains speed. Now, the elephant, or perhaps the Anatolian tiger in the room. Turkey will adapt. It is already adapting. It will study Achilles Shield, probe its edges, and invest in saturation tactics that stress defenses. It will harden its own forces, diversify suppliers, and play to its industrial strengths in drones and shipbuilding. No Greek plan survives contact with a static adversary, because the adversary is not static. That's exactly why Athens is investing in a process, not a single purchase. Radars can be upgraded, software can be patched, tactics can be rewritten after a rough exercise. The signal isn't "we're done," it's "we're learning faster than you." Consider a crisis vignette to make the abstraction bite. Day 1. A maritime standoff escalates when a patrol is shadowed too closely. Drone flights pick up.
A Greek frigate engages jammers and launches a small salvo of soft kill measures. The swarm loses coherence. Air patrols tighten. On day 2, stealth jets, having mapped emissions for hours, Q strikes on a pair of mobile coastal radars that were guiding hostile drones. A long-range missile battery on an island remains cold and hidden, but naval units maneuver into positions where its coverage closes an escape route. Day 3. Submarine reports a surface group shifting course. A helicopter drops sonobuoys to confirm. The frigate declines to engage and instead relays the track to aircraft that hit logistics craft outside the main screen. Nothing is decisive on its own. Everything is decisive together. Back home, this approach forces political discipline. A multi-decade plan is not a press conference. It's a promise to the future that today's leaders may not get to take credit for. To make it stick, Greece must tame procurement delays, coordinate across services, and keep public support for budgets that feed factories before they feed headlines. The bet, once again, is that a domestic defense ecosystem spins off civilian skills, composites, electronics, software that make the economy more resilient. If done well, the payoff is a virtuous circle. Stronger industry underwrites stronger defense, which protects the stability that industry needs.
Is there a risk of arms race dynamics? Always. But arms race is a phrase that only scares the side that's losing. The healthier lens is deterrence race. Greece is not trying to outspend Turkey into exhaustion. It is trying to raise the entry fee for coercion to a level that makes everyone think twice. The punchline of deterrence is rarely an explosion. It's a phone call that never gets made because the calculus is too ugly. If you want a joke here, picture a very serious spreadsheet in Athens labeled "Make it not worth it.xlsx." That might be the most dangerous weapon of the 2020s. Let's dwell on alliances once more. NATO membership is more than an emblem. It is access to intelligence, to training, to logistics networks. When a Greek radar feeds a NATO air picture, it gets a larger picture back. When Greek ships exercise with Americans, French, Italians, or regional partners, they practice common tactics and validate interoperability. When crises flare outside the neighborhood and Greek units deploy to help, they don't just earn goodwill. They gather experience that turns doctrine into muscle memory. A force that has done hard things far from home returns with habits that matter at home. And yes, culture counts. A military that feels modern, flying new jets, sailing modern frigates, mastering swarms and counter-swarms, retains talent. Pilots stay because they fly cutting-edge missions. Engineers stay because their code runs on real systems. Sailors stay because their training isn't theater. In the long run, retention is a strategic weapon. You can buy platforms. You cannot buy a decade of practice overnight. Greece understands that the real offset is human. The aircrew who trusts the network. The petty officer who knows the EW suite's quirks. The cyber analyst who spots a pattern at 2 a.m. Deterrence lives in those people as much as in any missile tube. So where does this leave the balance? Turkey remains the region's larger power, and Greece does not pretend otherwise. But balance is not a scoreboard. It is a feeling in the gut of decision makers. In that sense, the ground is shifting. Aegean airspace is becoming less permissive for the reckless. Island approaches are becoming more lethal for the hasty. Drone corridors are becoming less predictable for the confident. And the political space for crisis freelancing is shrinking because the costs of miscalculation are rising on both sides. That is not escalation. It is the discipline that comes with credible deterrence. If you take nothing else from this, take the architecture. Greece is building a force that sees first, decides fast, and strikes only when it matters. Achilles Shield defends the decision-making tempo. 5th and 4.5 generation fighters exploit it. Frigates and submarines hold maritime lines that suit Greece, not its adversaries. Land-based missiles and rockets make the littorals a maze. Drones complicate enemy plans, while counter-drone systems tame the chaos. Cyber and space bind it all. Industry sustains it, alliances amplify it. That is how a smaller state changes a larger state's mind. The last word belongs to the doctrine that ties this together. Offense, defensive. It sounds like a paradox until you see it on a map.
You defend not by absorbing punishment, but by creating so much threat in return that the other side cannot risk the punch. You accept that in a world of cheap, fast weapons, static defense is a liability. You become a moving puzzle, harder to target, quicker to act, tuned to deny, and then to disrupt. It is not a swaggering doctrine. It is a nervous system. So yes, Greece is doing what Turkey feared, not taunting, but transforming. It is stacking quality over quantity, fusing national industry with allied tech, and hard-coding a doctrine that turns defense into dynamic offense. The next time the Aegean sky fills with contrails and the sea bristles with wakes, the deciding factor won't be who brought more steel. It will be who sees first, who connects fastest, and who strikes with the fewest, smartest shots. On that score, Greece has chosen its hill. The question is simple, and it's the one I'll leave you with. In a region built on history and proximity, is this the blueprint that finally makes deterrence stick? Because if it is, the balance doesn't shift with a bang. It shifts with a network coming online. And somewhere over the Aegean, a drone realizes the Wi-Fi just got very unfriendly.